Truth, lies, shenanigans.
All right. So the next one is mine. Where are we? Let me get to mine. All right. All right. So this is going to be a fun one. We are talking. This is truth, lies, or shenanigans. We are talking. This is definitely shenanigans. Um. So, uh, actually, I'm gonna skip. I have to do something. Let's Rob B. Why don't you go ahead and do yours first?
Sure,
Thanks.
absolutely, absolutely. All
Go
right.
ahead.
So, what I chose for a topic this week is that there is a hearing happening at the Vatican, and this is based on some improprieties, some shenanigans that happened from 2012 to 2017 specifically, right? So the two priests are going on trial at the Vatican's criminal tribunal this week. And why this is significant is because there's been some major reform this year in Vatican law with the new Pope, biggest reform since 1984. So in this particular instance, they're really holding Pope Francis to task because he had made a speech where he had in December of 2017, where he said that they must adhere to a policy of zero tolerance for clergy who are sexually abused by children. And he begged for forgiveness for a sin that shames us, of course, referring to the church. So whistleblowers came out shortly after that and really put him to task. And with the revisions made in March of 2020, instead of just facing a regular Vatican inquest and a Vatican tribunal or papal tribunal, they're actually being brought forth on criminal charges because it happened within the city state of Vatican City. So now it's not just the church that's going into this, there's an actual penal system. We know that this has been an ongoing issue. The church covers up, they relocate priests because they invest a considerable amount of money into training these people and then they want them to go out and do their ministry. So I guess the big one for me is it's happening in Vatican City. Is this the type of reform that you think is going to stick, or is this just more posturing on the part of the church? The church has a tendency to put on these shows, and a lot of these cases get dropped simply because uh, it's not done properly. Um, so, Liz,
I think
I
it's
know that you feel
posturing.
strongly. Yeah.
I think it's posturing. First and foremost, this is not a big story in the United States right now. No one's talking about this. No, this is not on anyone's radar. And I
Mhm.
think for a lot of people, because at certain times over the past decade, over the past 15, 20 years, this has been a big story. I think a lot of people, specifically Catholics, are tired of it. I think they want it to go away. I think they want to sweep it under the rug. And so for it to come back again, it's like, okay, well, whatever. It's just, we've been there, done that. And it's happening in Vatican City. It's not really one of, the priests that we need to be concerned about right now, even though um, this priest has been accused of a lot of atrocious and disgusting behavior. um, I think that there's still this element of let's just cover it up and move on. Like we've given out these hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits or whatever. What more do they want? And the answer to that is we want accountability. We want people to go to jail. We
Mhm.
want acknowledgement. We want to not have priests like we talked about earlier, Rob. We want to not have priests shuffled from one parish to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And so I do think this is posturing because no one else is talking about this. Like before you presented this as a topic, and I keep up with the news all the time. I didn't know this was going on. And so then I had to do my own research and, govern myself accordingly about what was happening. And in the article that you provided, there is a video clip within that article about the bishop who is in charge of this case, who was in charge of this one particular priest who is accused of sexual improprieties against young boys. Um, and he was responsible for um, reinstating, if you will, this particular priest, allowing him to come back into a parish, allowing him to continue to counsel young people, to continue to perform baptisms and have all of these interactions with young people. And he made no excuses, no apologies from it for it, because he said, well, an investigation was done and he was cleared. And so I often say, where is the outrage? Where is, you're supposed to be a man of the cloth, you're supposed to be a man of faith, you're supposed to be, one of God's earthly prophets, if you will. What would Jesus do in this situation? You got a lot of people running around with these, WWJD
You just hit
bracelets.
us
What would
with
Jesus be doing?
what would Jesus do?
And so, yeah, Rob, I think it's posturing, and it's sad. It's really sad, because I don't think the victims in these cases have fully gotten justice. They haven't fully gotten justice. Everyone wants to sweep it under the rug. And so, good for the Vatican, like you said, to at least be acknowledging this, if you will, at this particular time. But here in America, ain't nobody talking about this,
Yeah,
and it's sad.
I didn't
It's
hear about
sad.
it either. I had no idea. You guys know how I feel about abuse of children, so it's for me, it's like one of the most egregious things you can do outside of murder. So,
Mhm.
this I'm glad they're doing something, even if it is posturing. But it's never going to be enough to me. It's never going to be
Exactly.
enough
Exactly.
to resolve what they've done to these kids and the way they've hit it. And to be honest, it's not like it just happened over the last 20, 30 years. This has been happening for centuries.
Centuries.
Centuries. This has just been a way of life for these Catholic priests. So, so sure they were sweeping it under the rug because that's what they've done. That's all they've done for
Mhm.
centuries. So, um, like I said, I'm happy that it's come to light and it's finally stopping. And hopefully over time it'll never happen again. I can't say never, but um,
And that's why this case is so significant, because this is being tried outside of the standard structure where we have seen the systemic just cover up. And that's it. People have been moved from parish to state to different countries. They've moved around the globe because they put so much money into training these individuals. They want to make sure that they get the most out of their product. They really do, out of their ministry. So now that it's being tried in a criminal court as well as the papal court, because Vatican City is its own city state with its own set of laws, and yeah, a lot of it is steeped in church tradition. But now this is being finally tried outside of that because there was a criminal act. And I think that we've seen a lot of that complacency occur, and we've seen a lot of cases get dismissed because you often find inconsistencies are noted for one of the major reasons for dismissals. And people who suffer trauma may not recall it correctly at times. There will be inconsistencies in the story because they're
Hmm.
dealing with a lot emotionally. Um, and a lot of these investigators, if you will, are not properly trained to investigate child sex crimes.
mhm.
Or the final report is being presented in a very biased way. And it's very important to note that the head of these inquests aren't the actual decision makers. They're just receiving the information and a recommendation from people who are doing the investigation. So I'm hoping, really hoping, that there will be some criminal charges and that there will be some damages paid out to these victims. And once the church starts paying out damages, like Boy Scouts of America is losing tons, they're losing out tons, they're liquidating huge assets and parks and camps because they have huge damages to pay.
Yep.
And until the church has damages to pay and they have to change their business practices, um, it's not going to change, unfortunately. But finally hearing it in a criminal court rather than a church court, that gives me hope that we are finally going to see some change and some revision in that system.
All right, let me get to
I have
these.
one quick question for you, Rob. So, do
Yeah.
you think under the previous Pope, Pope Benedict, that this tribunal, this criminal court case would have taken place?
You know what? Each pope enacts the set of rules as they can. Pope John Paul II had a very special place in my heart because he acknowledged and accepted Darwin's theory of evolution. It's just like, what? The Catholic Church accepts it? Your scientists looked at it and it's good science? Hey, of course, with an asterisk. Somebody put that in motion. But it's nice to see that reform is happening, and Pope Francis, although I don't adhere to the church, I have to say that he seems to have a very loving message compared to his predecessors, compared to Pope Palpatine.
Palpatine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I caught it. Took me a second, but I caught it. All right, let me get
Took
these
me
comments
2
online.
seconds.
We do have
Took
some
me 2
comments
seconds.
online. So Rupka says the priest should face higher penalties, just like cops should be. They are there to protect and serve with God. I've been reading the Bible, and they would burn just like that altar. Mike Winter says, I heard about it, but because of Alf dominating most of the news, uh, they hadn't focused on it.
For those of you who don't know, when Mike Winter refers to Alf, he's talking about President Donald J. Trump.
He does look like Alf.
That's Alf.
I wonder if the youngins know who Alf is,
Probably
though.
not. Probably not.
He also said Boy Scouts of America needs to keep paying all of their gay hating and they had all those little boy complaints that the Catholic Church suffered through.
Yeah.
So great comments online. All right, so
Shenanigans.